this morning's speakers, Ms. Kristen Brown and Mr. Kurtz. They are from DISA, and Mr. Kurtz is the Chief Engineer, Enterprise-Wide Services, and Kristen Brown, IT Specialist, Enterprise-Wide Services. Our panel's members' biographies can be found on the Symposium's app. And please remember that this session has been approved for continuing education units, and at the end of the session, I can scan you for those credits. So please, let's all welcome Ms. Brown and Mr. Kurtz.
All right, good morning. My name is Carl Kurtz, and as was just stated, I'm the Chief Engineer for the Enterprise-Wide Services Division within DISA. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the current portfolio of UC-related products and services, and then somebody's going to give me the hook, and Kristen's going to come up and talk about the next generation of enterprise services in the UC space we refer to as DEOS. She'll explain what it is that DEOS actually stands for, because what I know about it at this point is it's spelled DEOS. So if we can go ahead to the next slide. So what I'm going to talk to is not the disclaimer. We can get to the next slide. All right. I'm going to spend some time talking about those services that DISA offers that operate in this UC space. And I want to point out up front that DISA recognizes that as of right now, our unified capabilities are not currently unified. And down there at the bottom, you see that one line there that says that over time, we're going to be addressing that. And I could talk to you a little bit of what we're doing to address some of those as we move forward. So I'm also working with DoD-CIO and the service components to define what UC means to the Department of Defense. And so you see those 6 columns, essentially, voice, video, collaboration. Those are more of your real-time or very near real-time services that from that space. And then email, content management, and office productivity that make up the remainder of what UC considers, or that the DoD considers to be UC. I'm going to talk for a moment about the services that DISA offers that fall into those spaces, talk about where some of the themes are. So first, I'm going to do this from left to right. So starting on the left, on the voice track, DISA offers a number of services through our Enterprise Voice over IP program. We refer to as eVoIP. And then EC-VoIP is the classified version and operates on the CIPRNet. So you have your unclassified version, eVoIP, classified version, EC-VoIP. So what this is basically is, the handset that you have on your desk, connected voice over IP to a call manager to provide point-to-point calling, also voice conferencing. Also provides the normal, what you would consider to be normal phone features like voicemail. And then what's somewhat unique about the DoD's implementation of enterprise voice over IP is that we also offer priority and preemption within that service, meaning that in the event of a national crisis, we would want the decision makers in the department to have priority on the network for the content of their voice conversations over other things that maybe are more further to the right on that chart. Like, and I'm sure that you've probably sat in web conferences before where somebody sends a huge email out over the network, and all of a sudden everybody's voice connections, the quality goes downhill in a hurry. Well, with priority and preemption, if you have a priority call, then in the quality of service, you're right up at the top where everything else moves down below, and your service doesn't get interrupted. What preemption actually does is it allows those personnel that have the proper authorization to actually cut other people off in the service. So if we're running out of voice trunking capability in times of a crisis, for example, when we had that earthquake here about, what was it now, almost 5 years ago, If you wanted to try to make a phone call, it just wasn't going to happen. The phone circuits were overwhelmed. In the case of eVoIP, in the eVoIP program, those personnel that had the proper authorization would actually be able to override existing phone calls. Other lower priority connections may get dropped in order to place the higher priority calls. That is a unique requirement to the Department of Defense and will not go away moving forward. There will always be those command control type elements, those senior personnel in the department who have a requirement that they are at a higher priority to be able to complete their collaboration requirements over other personnel. In the commercial side, you generally don't see that. The EC-VoIP program operates virtually the same way. Biggest difference there is we don't also operate as a commercial voice ISP, meaning we don't reach those classified calls out to the unclassified commercial networks. On the video side, we have the GVS program, Global Video Services. There's actually a demo here today by the GVS team over in the DISA booth. I recommend that anybody who has time to go ahead and take a look. They provide a number of video services, both using a desktop client, mobile clients, and then also having the ability to take in video from other means through ISDN lines and then doing transcoding to the services that are inherent to the service. So it also provides some voice conferencing. We are doing, and back to that bottom line down there about integration. In our lab, we're working on integration between the GVS capabilities, especially related to voice conferencing, and the eVoIP capabilities. Moving further over to collaboration, for those of you who know what DCO was and now know what DCS is, Defense Collaboration Services, those are the general capabilities that you find in this column. Web conferencing is kind of the big one there, but there's also instant messaging and also chat. The difference between instant messaging and chat generally is instant messaging is point-to-point, meaning one person to another person, where chat is generally a room-based capability. And then presence, of course, if you have ever used an instant messenger, you can see when somebody's actually at their desk. If they move their mouse in the last several minutes, it'll show them as being active. As we move forward, as we do integration, you may actually be able to see whether the person's on the phone already. In fact, if you're using the eVoIP client today, you can see whether or not somebody is actually on the phone, has picked up the handset to make a phone call, and probably shouldn't be trying to call the person because you're not going to get through, but you might want to send that person a instant message, say, hey, I've got a question, either give you a call or call me back, or answer via the instant messaging. Finally, we talk about the integrated services, and you're going to hear a lot more about this from Kristen when she gets up here. And these are provided through any number of different services at DISA. You have DoD Enterprise Email provides, of course, the email service that DISA provides to the department. We have the entire Army on board with DEE, and we have a number of agencies that have come on board. And we're talking to, of course, additional potential customers across the department as we moving forward as well. I believe right now the last count that I heard was we've cleared more than 1.4 million users on the enterprise email system, and that number keeps increasing every day. In content management and office productivity, DISA has a much smaller presence because in general we don't provide those capabilities as a service necessarily. We do have the DoD Enterprise Portal Service using DEPS, which is a SharePoint-based capability. But when it comes to those office productivity apps, those are generally installed applications that components purchase from a vendor. Now, we do have a joint enterprise licensing agreement in place with multiple vendors, and the components generally pull off of those to get advantageous pricing for the department. So that's where we are with the services that DISA offers today. As we go through here, Yeah, you notice that I did not talk to how this particular application talked to this other application. And that's because, frankly, we're not there yet. We have some integration going on in the lab right now with, like I said, with GVS and eVoIP. Moving forward, DCS will become significantly more integrated with those other services. We're looking at federation opportunities between the DCS platform, the GVS platform, now that it has a chat capability integrated into it, and then also the eVoIP platform, because that also offers the chat capability. So anywhere that we see chat throughout any of these services, we're looking at doing some sort of federated model so that the services can at the very least be interoperable. Integrated is, of course, harder because we have a lot of proprietary solutions that use different protocols, and so we're looking at what opportunities we do have there. They are somewhat limited. We recognize that now, and frankly, moving forward, DEOS will give us a lot more opportunity to be able to integrate these things moving forward. So I'll be willing to take questions at the end after Kristen's done, and we'll take combined Q&A. But as of right now, I'll go ahead and step down and let Kristen go ahead and talk about DEOS and the plan for DISA moving forward in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. So Defense Enterprise Office Solutions is formerly known as DEE 2.0. In September of 2015, DISA issued an RFI for an email and calendaring only solution. Based upon that RFI and the inputs that we received from industry partners, as well as an overall assessment of the ongoing solutions and ongoing cloud pilotings throughout the Department of Defense, the DEOS PMO took a step back and looked at what would be more effective, efficient, and potentially provide additional cost savings for the department as we move forward for our next enterprise solution or capability that would be provided by DISA. With that analysis being done, as well as the various vector checks that we got from our mission partners, we decided that procuring and going forward with more of a software as a service capability would create efficiencies as well as potential cost savings and integration and interoperability opportunities in the future. And as you can see on the previous slide that Carl had presented, right now currently a lot of our enterprise capabilities are not integrated or seamlessly integrated with one another. And as we move forward, that's one of our initial goals for the DEOS solution. And as I guess the industry partners and what kind of feedback we've obtained from you, as well as talking to our additional mission partners, is that seamless integration between all of those capabilities as we move forward for whatever our next solution is going to be is critical for the department, as well as our business demand and potential cost savings as we move forward in the addition. Excuse me. Based upon that feedback as well from the RFI and kind of looking at the various pilots that are ongoing, there's various deployment model features right now that are ongoing within the department. And what I mean by that is the various on-premises, off-premises, and hybrid approaches. And as we move forward and looking at our analysis, right now I cannot say that there is one specific deployment model that we will be considering as we move forward to deploy the Defense Enterprise Office solutions. But I can say there are some challenges with the deployment models based upon the limited research, development, and feedback that we have received from our mission partners, as well as industry. Touching upon what Carl previously presented in his slide, you'll see some overlap in capabilities here and kind of the vision for DEOS as we move forward. For example, Carl had spoken to kind of more of our Office Productivity Suite right now and the joint enterprise licenses that we have that are readily available for our mission partners to use as we move forward. The vision for DEOS, what we think, is going to be more of that integrated suite versus the I guess I want to caveat is not the integrated suite versus the one-off stovepipe legacy solutions that we currently have right now. The challenge that we foresee, though, with the DEOS solution as we move forward is that integration into the voice and video arena. We would like to potentially use our enterprise existing voice over IP infrastructure to allow that integration. And the concern right now is we think that based upon the demand signals that we have from our mission partners and the capabilities that industry can provide to meet some of these functional area requirements, I think the fair enough assessment is we're comfortable saying that whatever we procure in the future, or the future solution, would be able to meet the non-assured voice and video capabilities. However, once you move into the assured environment and providing survivability, that's where things get a little bit challenging in how we're going to deploy that and meet that functional requirement as we move forward. What I will also say is that as we move forward, some of our existing legacy systems will potentially be sunsetted or replaced with the future DOS solution. I will also caveat that this process right now of going through and looking through at the different functional areas and seeing what's out there from an industry perspective and what is available to meet some of the requirements as we move forward is a challenge for us, just because we know that there are a lot of vendors within this space that can provide multiple services that can do all of these. But I think the biggest key that we're looking for from a department and a DISA and a DoD-wide perspective is how do we have that integration and interoperability between all of these suites and functionalities that are currently listed. So our way ahead for DOS. Our contracting way forward, this will be a full and open competition. It will allow large businesses and small businesses to potentially compete in the future. We're focusing right now on what I would consider as the best technical evaluation or trade-off as we move forward, because technology is currently always evolving, and we do know that based upon the amount of data that we do have from a DoD perspective, that as we move forward and basically migrating the existing data into whatever our future system would be a challenge for us. That's why we're kind of leaning towards that technical evaluation, where previously on some of the contracts that the government does, we usually look at what the cost, the drivers would be at the end of the day and more cost effective for us. As we move forward, we're also looking at more of a subscription-based service. And what I mean by subscription-based is having that managed service from the commercial service provider provide the infrastructure, the license, the hardware, and be responsible for things such as tech refresh, hardware, in the out years as we move forward. What I will say for right now is kind of what we're trying to propose from our acquisition approach is potentially an IDIQ or a BPA structure, which would allow multiple vendors to be out there to provide different capabilities, and also allow our mission partners to potentially procure the various capabilities that they need in the future moving forward. What we also see, too, from an acquisition perspective is we would like to do more of a phased implementation from an acquisition approach, and what I mean by that is more of a tiered structure. I know with a lot of our previous contracts, for example, for DEE, we issued a contract to support roughly 4.5 million users, and we have a lot of infrastructure that's currently out there, and as Carl indicated, we only have 1.6 million users currently on DEE. So what I foresee and how we finalize our acquisition approach and strategy is more of that tiered structure that outlines the initial users between X and Y, and potentially having the growth or requesting the growth on our contract to potentially grow up to the 4.5 million users in the futures by allowing optional task orders to support that growth and expansion of our users based upon the demand that we get from our mission partners. In addition to that, we also see that there are a lot of integration challenges based upon our legacy systems that are currently out there. And we understand that it's going to be in our best interest to provide as much technical information based upon our legacy systems, our data type, how our data is structured, to allow our commercial service providers to provide us with a good opportunity, a good strategy on how we could potentially move forward with implementing this more integrated suite of capabilities or service as we move forward. I will also say, too, to kind of touch, if you guys attended Mr. Martin and Mr. Hale's discussion earlier about MilCloud, from an infrastructure perspective, we're kind of getting into a challenge based upon whether or not we're going to do an off-premise, on-premise, or a hybrid approach. And the challenge is those security plus requirements that are currently mandated by the Commercial Cloud Security Requirement Guide, or the SRG, that are currently out there. And being able to kind of meet those requirements within this space and provide this capability is still what I would consider a concern for the department regarding our data and how things are tracked, managed, and also reported on. So as we move forward on the DOS PMO, analyzing some of those cybersecurity challenges and risks for implementing this as we move forward is going to be critical for us, but I think that that's where that we have a lot of input, and we can potentially request information from our industry partners on, because I know that a lot of you have been engaged in this as we move forward, and you've provided input based upon the cloud SRG. But as we move forward in that cybersecurity realm and continue to, build out our enterprise services, I think collectively coming together to find some standardization, like Mr. Halverson had previously indicated in his discussion prior to this, that I think it would be in everybody's best interest, and potentially also provide some cost savings to us as well as our future commercial service providers. So with that being said, before I open up for questions, I would like to say that since right now we're kind of going through our acquisition drill, a lot of the questions, if I cannot provide a detailed response to, please bear with me and kind of keep that in mind, just because we are going through a lot of our acquisition planning, and there is some limited information that I would not be able to provide. Questions?
With respect to cybersecurity and the implementation, if you're going on-site, off-site, or hybrid, for information system security managers or officers, what type of assurance to them or transparency is there from an information assurance perspective? Yeah.
So that gets kind of challenging. It's hard because the way that the cloud SRG is currently written right now, and the various mandates that are on that, I think as we move forward, understanding kind of where industry is going with their cybersecurity approach and where DoD could potentially leverage some of their lessons learned is going to be in our best interest from a department perspective. But I think that that's still something that's still to be determined as we work through a lot of the analysis and planning. Any other questions?
Since it's an open mic, on the cybersecurity testing, kind of shifting it left and getting it earlier in the development process, research, interoperability side, is there a shift to see kind of getting earlier into red teams, almost like a purple team that allows adversarial threat earlier in the process to see it from a research side, so that we're able to see how the cybersecurity posture is changing from research and as it goes through the acquisition process or even the development process?
So what I will say is that from a testing perspective, we have JITIC engaged with us and kind of trying to work out a lot of the policies, the procedures, the standards of what they're going to require for, we kind of have a good understanding of what they would require for an on-premise. When we get into off-premise and a hybrid approach, things get a little bit trickier, and we're trying to work with them to understand what processes would potentially change and what existing processes would be impact or could be leveraged as we move forward from a testing and implementation. I will say though, depending upon the deployment model and depending upon the solution that's selected, of course, based on what's currently out there for policy, you're going to have to go through your FedRAMP certification, your 3PAO assessment, and all of that. But I think that's kind of where the government, we have to do a better job in understanding as we move forward and write these contracts in an acquisition approach. I know that outlining a certain timeline to be FedRAMP compliant has been a challenge in the past for some of our contracts. And understanding that we have no control over the FedRAMP assessment and the security posture that goes on within the FedRAMP PMO. We can only control what happens over in our FSO side of the fence once it gets over to us after it's been done with FSO. So it's kind of a collective and a collaborative way ahead that we need to figure out, and I think that we need to work through. And I think that as we move forward in defining some of the challenges, and I think one of the best things that we're looking to do potentially in the future is release a draft RFP to industry, so we can kind of get your input based upon our baseline requirements which would include some of the testing and the cybersecurity posture. Because I think that that's going to give us a good understanding of what industry is capable of doing, what you have some hiccups with, and potentially allow the DOS requirements to be developed in such a way that there's no ambiguity in the future when we're requiring our commercial service providers to bid on the final RFP. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question. You almost got around to answering it, but is there a backup slide that has a schedule that you're about to show us?
So there is no schedule. What I can say right now from a schedule perspective is right now internally, as we go through this acquisition process and the current financial assessment and economic analysis that has been performed, it's kind of indicated to us that this would probably be an ACAT 1 program or project just based upon the total FIDEP value. Right now, DISA's senior leadership is engaging with DPAP and AT&L to figure out what the acquisition categorization would be in the future. And what I will caveat is that all going to depend upon what comes back on how our timeline adjusts. So right now I can say that if we're classified as an ACAT 1, our projected contract award would be fourth quarter of FY17. Keep in mind that if AT&L and DPAP come back and designate us as an acquisition of service, we could potentially reduce some of the statutory and regulatory requirements that are required upon us and potentially reduce that schedule timeline to the left a little bit.
Good morning. My question, I'd like to know what type of steps DISA is taking to ensure that the mission partners are buying in to whatever the integrated solutions or services that are being offered within this approach as well as other approaches from DEOS.
So what I will say is the PMO went out with a joint staff action processing memorandum back in the beginning of February out to all of our mission partners throughout the Department of Defense. And we asked them to take a look at our approach as well as our baseline requirements that we had pulled together. We got a lot of response and a lot of interest back from that. From that action, we have weekly occurring meetings with our mission partners to review our baseline requirements for this capability as we move forward. In addition to that, what we've also done is try to use a lot of the existing market research that has already been performed by our various mission partners throughout the Department of Defense to build out our business case, our acquisition strategy and approach, instead of issuing multiple RFIs and having all of that information come back, because you guys have already provided the majority of information to various mission partners throughout the department. I will say that the vector checks that we are getting from our mission partners is that they are on board with our solution and way forward, and I think that that's kind of relevant as to our way forward. I also think that a lot of the ongoing pilots right now throughout the Department of Defense are related to kind of this way ahead approach of having that more seamless integrated suite of services. Some of the ongoing pilots, some of them are on-premise capabilities, some of them are off-premise capabilities. But I think right now, as we move forward, we have that buy-in from our mission partners. I think the biggest thing is being able to meet some of kind of what Mr. Halverson spoke about related to our coalition and ally partners, data requirements and data sharing. And I think that that's going to be critical for us to understand how industry can potentially meet some of those requirements, because as we look towards deploying our next enterprise capability, the demand for that information sharing with our coalition partners is critical, but at the same time, we also need to make sure that we have the appropriate security controls and postures in place.
Well, thank you for attending this session. We greatly appreciate it. Let's give our two speakers a hand. And once again, if you need credit for your CompTIA or your CASP, stop by up here and I will scan your badge. Thank you.